We should segue into Israel Gaza though, and just to touch on it. I mean, I said it when this since October 7th. Netanyahu has got to go, and until he's gone, this conflict is never going to cease. It's
Right.
just he has a prerogative for keeping the conflict alive because if the war does stop, then his corruption charges have to get dealt with,
Yeah.
and he has to actually stand trial for a bunch of these corruption charges. Apparently, like Hollywood has wined and dined him. There's this guy, this Hollywood producer, uh, Ar- Arnon Milchan, who was the head of Regency Enterprises, and he used to give. He gave Netanyahu like a bunch of gifts, and there's all sorts of
Yeah.
deals that Netanyahu made with the media magnates in Israel. I mean, it's rank corruption.
Yeah.
And the fact that the mainstream media here isn't emphasizing that, especially because we love scandal. Our media
Yeah.
loves scandal. Why
Of
why are we
course.
not embracing why are we not focusing on the scandal at the heart of this conflict, which is
Yeah.
Netanyahu?
Yeah. A lot of a lot of the media is actually starting to pick up on it a whole lot more. You're starting to see like Chuck Schumer and Joe
Yeah.
Biden like actually
Yeah, well, it's
come
about
out and
damn time.
yeah, actually come out and point like call out Netanyahu by name and actually say like, yeah, this guy shouldn't be the leader of Israel anymore. Like that's just step one. Just like the ceasefire, that's step one. Because like if you don't like render the Likud party, I believe that Yahu's party in Israel, if you don't get rid of that festering pile of filth,
Right.
then you're this is just going to continue like a whole lot of things. It's a multifaceted,
Right.
complex situation. If you don't get like a whole lot of these different things done, this is just going to repeat. This
Yeah.
is just going to continue. It's
Yeah.
it's easy to point at one guy and place the blame on everything for him, but it really is. It doesn't come down to one person.
Well,
It's a lot
there
more
might be.
complicated
It's
than
just a
that.
logjam. I mean, we don't know what the other problems are because we can't get past this problem, which is Netanyahu. I mean, if we were to remove him from the equation, maybe we could see what the rest of the equation looks like. But right now, we can't see the inner workings of the problem on the ground, on the politics. And like, come on, guys, Netanyahu is notoriously far right.
Yeah.
How this is another we've talked about it before, missed opportunity. This is a missed opportunity for the Democratic Party to say Israel has gone way too far. This party is not bought by wealthy Jewish aristocrats in America. We represent truth and knowledge and power, right? Knowledge, truth, wisdom. That's what we're working with.
Yeah,
That's
a lot of Americans, and especially
supposed to be anyway.
like Democrats in power and whatnot, like because they're receiving a whole lot of APAC money and they're receiving their talking points from top down and whatnot. A lot of them actually don't really understand just how vile and racist a lot of not just Israeli leaders, but the Israeli public is as well towards not just Palestinians but like African migrants that they're it's gross. It's
It's
absolutely
always
gross.
tough. It's always tough for white guys to comment on race,
Of
but
course.
I always try to keep my offerings to that conversation pretty concise. And I will say that having had relationships, both friendly and social, the various array of types of relationships with people from different countries
Yeah.
all over the world, places like India and China and the continent of Africa and South America and so forth. Racism is everywhere.
Yes.
Every country has a problem with race.
Yeah.
Every country. And here's the deal. It's never that complicated on who has the upper hand in the racial conflict. It's always the person that looks more white. Down
Yeah.
in Mexico, for example, if you're more native looking, if you look like you have Aztecian heritage, that is, according to pop culture and, just cultural bias, that is less desirable than if you have European
Yeah.
heritage,
Right.
which is counterintuitive to me. I would have thought that the indigenous people would be more celebrated because it's originally their people's land. But
Right.
shows
Of
you what I
course.
know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, I mean, from what I know about Mexico, like they're very, very nationalist. Very nationalist. They don't like foreigners living there. They don't like outsiders. They're not very fond of Americans settling, uh, or like like living there at all. From what I know, but it's only like my understanding is at a surface level. But yeah, like it's the corroding facets within any society is the ability of your leaders, authority, government, pundits, personalities, whatever, to regurgitate that vile racist rhetoric and pass it down, dehumanize certain members, certain demographics within your society, or not within your society, and weaponize it to use it against the so-called undesirables and
Yes,
whatnot.
the other.
Yes, it's the same playbook that the fascists
Yeah,
of the 30s and 40s used.
yeah.
It's the
It's
same.
it's the Lyndon Johnson quote. So I'm going to get it up because
It's
I
the
make sure I
MAGA
get it right.
movement today. It's the
Yeah.
anti-woke movement
Oh, there's
or
nothing new
whatever, you
about
know?
it. There's
Yeah,
nothing new
exactly.
about it.
It's
Yeah.
the same shit. It's the exact same
Okay,
shit.
so I'm just quoting because I wouldn't use. There's a word in here I wouldn't use, but I'm just
Uh-huh.
quoting Lyndon Johnson. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. I should have
Yep.
done that in the whole time. And I tell you what, man, Lyndon Johnson was a benevolent bully. He obviously blew it with Vietnam,
Yeah.
but his domestic policies were very aggressive, and he was a notorious kind of political gangster almost with the
Yeah.
way he went about his business. He would show up at your office like unannounced and be like, "Hey, yeah, let's go have a walk and talk about your
Yeah.
policies and what I'm going to
Yep.
tell you what you're going to do for the next 3 days."
God, we need that back. Like
Yeah,
please,
the
like,
benevolent bully. We need to
yeah,
counter. We need some leadership.
the assertiveness, like big time.
Right.
Yeah. Like
On
yeah.
your toes. No, I mean I grew up at my the head of my high school growing up was this conservative priest, and he respected though he was the only conservative in the entire administration. Everybody else he hired was pretty liberal. He even hired basically a communist history professor, and because he respected them as intellectual equals,
Right.
and he also knew he was smart enough to know that he wasn't as smart as they were. I mean, we had some incredible professors with some, like Pulitzer Prize winner, shit like that.
Yeah.
And anyway, but he had the sense to know what his gift was, and I think Lyndon Johnson was the same way. His gift was to surround himself with good people and execute like good ideas, or at least well-intended ideas. The war on
Right.
poverty. I've studied the war on poverty. It was not a sound strategy. It was kind of an incomplete
Yeah.
approach to the war on poverty, but the sentiment was still benevolent. Like, we shouldn't have given up. We should have been like, okay, what did we learn? Let's try again and get it
Right.
right. We're still
Yeah.
living in the consequences of this idea that, like, oh, well, we tried government and it didn't work, so let's give up on it. We're still
Yeah.
fighting that.
Yeah, and every administration, even on the Democratic side, had their shortcomings. Like even the civil rights movement had its shortcomings. With like the Civil Rights Act, for example, it there are always ways. Like if you have enough hate in your heart, you can find you can find a way around certain pieces of legislation and whatnot. Because even after that was passed, like there certain states wouldn't
Yeah.
let black families take out loans and whatnot, wouldn't let them
Right.
take out mortgages for houses and whatnot.
Oh, it's going to
It-
take 20 years for a piece of that kind of legislation to trickle
Oh,
down
God.
to local governments. I mean,
It's
everyone
it's
pats each other
taken-
on the back. And, what's happened with affirmative action. I mean,
It's still bad.
black America just keeps getting screwed over
No,
left and
you're
right.
kidding.
It's just
and I
ridiculous.
and I see it firsthand, like with the work that I do too. It's just like a lot of Section 8 housing, a lot of just really poorly maintained neighborhoods that were thrown overboard, years ago. Just like investment just packing up and and leaving and whatnot. It's really bad, and you know, and like when Reagan introduced like our credit score system, that just made it even worse. You know, like because
Right.
it's disgusting, and it really all stems back to racism. That's all it
Yeah.
comes down to. Yeah, it's gross.
So